Thank you so much for joining me today, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to talk about Black Comedy, which is currently running at Tread the Boards Theater. And you had your first week, your weekend. How
Yep.
did that go?
It went pretty well overall. Yeah, it was pretty challenging, but we got through it and we seemed to have a pretty positive response from the audiences overall. So we were pretty happy with how it went.
So, for those who maybe are unfamiliar with the show, what's kind of the story of Black Comedy?
So the story is about a young artist who is an unknown artist, and he's really excited because he's about to have this millionaire art collector over to visit his apartment to view one of his sculptures, and he's hoping that he can sell this sculpture and get his name out there. But right before the millionaire is supposed to arrive, the power goes out. So when the play starts, the stage is actually in the dark, right? And then
Okay.
when the power goes out, all the lights come on. So for the actors, it's kind of the opposite of reality. So when the lights come on after the power goes out, the actors are then pretending that they're in the dark, right? So the audience is viewing it as if we're stumbling around in the dark trying to get the power back on. And so as the play goes on, the situation gets progressively worse and worse and worse for this character as he's trying to prepare for the arrival of this millionaire.
And who are you playing in the show?
I am playing Harold Gorange. I am the main character's next door neighbor. I live across the hall from him, and I own a china shop. I'm very particular. And essentially, part of the mess that the main character gets himself into is that he thought that I was going to be away for the weekend. So, since he's very poor and doesn't have much nice stuff, he borrowed all of my fancy furniture from my apartment to try to impress this millionaire that's coming over. So he's taken all of my stuff out and put all of his crummy stuff into my apartment, and then basically I get home from my weekend trip early, so I
Okay.
I arrive while the power's still out, and so now that's like one of the layers of absurdity that gets added to the play. Now the main character is not only trying to get the power back on, but he's trying to now prevent me from finding out that he took all of my stuff. So he's trying to move all of my furniture from his apartment back to my apartment in the dark without me noticing while I'm there.
So it sounds like you kind of throw a big wrench into his plan there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yep, yep.
And so I guess how do you approach a character like that? It sounds like you are you're bringing a lot of comedy to this through the fact of you're throwing that wrench into his plan. You're trying to figure out what happened to your furniture. How do you approach a character like that?
Yeah, well, with Harold, I mean, I think you just have to play him really straight. Like
Sure.
I don't need to try to be funny. I just need to be Harold, and then the way the play is written like sets it up to be pretty funny because very early on in the play, the main character mentions, Harold will lose his mind. He'll turn into a mad killer within 10 seconds if he finds out that we took his stuff. So I don't really need to do anything except play the character in that way. Like I appear to be like a totally chill guy, like a nice guy who maybe likes to tell stories about his china shop, a little eccentric. But as far as the comedy aspect goes, I just need to make sure that I live up to that and actually do fly off the handle and turn into a mad killer when I find out, which ultimately does happen.
What is that like for you as an actor to you're kind of playing like a very straight character and then all of a sudden you get to fly off the handle? Like having that range, what is that
It's
like for you?
it's definitely intense because there's a moment at the end, right, the very end, where I leave the stage because I'm like, all right, I'm going home. And then a couple minutes later, I come back because I basically discovered what he had done, and I'm like freaking out. So I kind of have to really ramp myself up in a way to be able
Sure.
to do that performance at the very end, because you want the anger to feel authentic, right?
Sure.
So you really have to kind of get into that moment. And so I find myself like before I'm bursting back out on stage yelling at this guy that I'm kind of taking a few really deep breaths, trying to get in the zone, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but yeah.
Really kind of have to escalate quickly to that moment.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
So you kind of mentioned how the show starts off in the dark, and then when the lights come on, the characters are in the dark, which is such a unique perspective for a show like this.
Yeah.
How has that challenged you, kind of as an actor, or how has that pushed the boundaries of how you interact with other people on the stage?
Oh, it's definitely been challenging because, for the first couple of rehearsals, Cindy, our director, was constantly yelling at us, like, no, don't look at anyone else. You don't really know exactly where they are. You kind of just need to be staring out into space as you're speaking. We did a few exercises early on in the process where we actually took turns blindfolding each other and trying to find things so that we could kind of practice that feeling of stumbling around, trying to locate
Sure.
something without knowing exactly where it is. So it's definitely added an extra layer of challenge because if you don't commit to that bit 100%, then it's going to fall flat, right? The audience isn't going to buy it unless all of the cast is completely committed to that bit of like faking that you're in the dark, basically. So,
Sure.
yeah, trying to keep your head in that space the entire play is definitely a little tricky for sure.
I can imagine, like, just being like knowing that you can see but pretending like you can't,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
and you're like,
It's a
oh,
lot of it's a lot of looking at things out of your peripherals to know where other actors are on the stage, etc. So
sure.
I've gotten really good at that.
That's actually really cool though that you mentioned about the blindfold, like learning. That's a cool way to like develop the ability to kind of stumble around stage and stuff. Is to
Yeah,
blindfold yourself and really feel it.
it was a fun exercise for sure. Yeah. It's definitely tricky because we were trying to make sure we didn't get hurt in the process, bang into anything or anything like that.
For sure, but you really do want it to look authentic, like you are like
Yeah.
in the dark. And
Yeah, because otherwise, how's the audience gonna believe it? I mean, you need them to believe that for them to really be able to suspend their disbelief and get into the story and everything. So,
right, and in doing so well, it does add to that farcical humor of what black comedy seems to be.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, what drew you to this project?
Well, I had actually not been involved in any theater for quite some time. It's something I had done when I was younger, and I had always had this itch in the back of my mind that I wanted to try it again, wanted to go out and get involved again. And I was actually going through a period of unemployment, so I had a lot of spare time on my hands. So I figured, hey, this is a great opportunity to maybe try to get involved with a local group. So I did some research and I found Tread the Boards and I went to the audition and they seemed like really great people. And yeah, that was basically it. And I'm, really happy that I've been able to be a part of it. It's been a really fun experience.
I mean, it definitely sounds like, having talked with Cody as well, there's a lot of love for this theater, but also for this show specifically. And the way that it's kind of pushed the boundaries of what you can expect from theater and how it's challenged the actors has been, it sounds enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely been challenging, but I mean, I like a challenge. So
Right.
that to me, that hasn't made it less enjoyable. I'd say the challenge has made it more enjoyable in a way.
Right. Because once you nail that piece of it, once you're able to kind of lock down, like stumbling in the dark, but it's light, once you're able to lock that down, that feels like a sense of accomplishment in all of
Yeah,
this.
yeah, for sure.
So this was once a one act play, but I've heard that they divided it into two. How do you think that maybe changes the show, or how does it enhance it? Because I know you've added some things in the middle as well.
Yeah, so we did add an intermission, which I think was a good thing for several reasons. One, it adds a little more suspense. The point where we decided to add the intermission, where the director decided to add the intermission, was a really good choice. She picked, I think, the perfect spot. And so it adds a little bit of a moment of suspense for the audience. Um, where there's a break and they have to then sit there and think, oh, what's going to happen next?
Sure.
But then also, the whole play takes place in one room, and it's basically a nonstop conversation between the different characters that come in and out of this room at different points throughout the play. So having a break in the middle is kind of, I think, helpful for the actors also,
For
because
sure.
otherwise it's really just kind of just this long, like hour and a half conversation between the six of us. And so I think having that break in there really helps give us a moment to re-energize and step away for a second. So I'm glad that they added that. But
I mean, it definitely sounds, with any show, obviously, but like a break is sometimes needed mentally so that you can just like
Yeah.
breathe. You don't have to
Yep.
think about it for a
Yep.
second, and then you can enter back to that character with a clear head.
Yeah, and it also gives us a chance to reflect on, okay, what are we doing right? What do we maybe need as a group to focus on doing better in the second half, you know? So kind of gives us a moment almost as a team to kind of have like a little powwow or a huddle, like the
Sure.
football team between plays, huddle, bring it in, well,
Yep.
what's going right? What can we improve? So that's helpful as well.
And then you also brought in like a comedy act and a singing act too that breaks it up for the audiences as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So they had a local stand-up who the owner of the company knows. He did an opening act for us, and then we had a local musician who sang a couple songs during the intermission. So that kind of added some other layers of artistic expression to the whole show, which was really cool.
Absolutely, and it like you said, it expands it. It also it showcases what talent we have in our area because we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
so
It's
so much talent.
giving these other artists a platform and an opportunity to share their artistry with an audience, which is really cool. So.
So, final question for you then is just what are you hoping audiences take away from this production of black comedy?
I just hope that they have a good time. I think we're just here trying to put on a show to entertain people and to make people happy and make people smile. So I really just hope that they come away from it feeling like they enjoyed themselves and with a smile on their face and, that a moment to forget about life, a moment to forget about everything that's going on and just kind of enjoy a goofy show and have a couple laughs. So that's really been my goal. So
And honestly, that's one of the the best things about theater is just when you could escape for a little bit. And I know some shows are heavy, but like to have a
right,
moment where you
right.
just laugh and kind of have a good time,
Yep,
nothing beats that.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for talking with us. We are so appreciative and we're so excited for this show to finish its run this weekend. Um, but thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Brian.
Black Comedy runs at Tread the Boards Theater in Waterford now through the 21st. So get your tickets and we'll see you there.
Thanks.